One of the concerns that I hear from people that I talk to as they're looking at this task of buying their first home is I think people they get on some of the online search engines, and they see different homes that are for sale in areas they'd like to be, and they get a little discouraged with the pricing they're seeing. Have you found that?
Yeah, that's probably one of the biggest things that I'm hearing right now is that it's just not very affordable to buy a home. Property values in the state of Utah are continuing to go up and have gone up over the past several years. So people are like, "Oh, how do I afford to buy a home, or should I wait till prices go back down again?"
And I always like to laugh at that, and I say, if any of us could predict a market going up or down and when that would happen, I think we'd all be pretty rich at this point, right?
Oh, yeah. So many times I wished I had that crystal ball that
Right?
I could tune into.
Yeah, and like any market, I think the important thing is to get in. One thing, if you focus on the pricing of the houses, I think that can get discouraging. But historically, I think it's important to look at the price of getting a loan. Historically, what interest rates are you seeing right now?
Interest rates are kind of pretty volatile right now.
Okay.
And so we are seeing a lot of ups and downs. But right now they're currently probably in the low to mid fours. That will also depend on the loan program. Some of those down payment assistance programs that we talk about are in the fives. But don't let that discourage you, because I've had people that said, "Oh, that's such a high interest rate." But if there's not a way to get into a home otherwise, it's a great way to be able to get into a home, and then you can always look at that short term and refinance it down the road once you've built a little bit of equity in the home. The biggest thing to me with affordability is not waiting till you price yourself out of the market. I was just talking with one of my colleagues on my team, and about 6 months ago, he had a client that was looking at a house that was about 280,000, and they just felt like that was too high, and didn't decide to, for whatever reason, it wasn't the right time for them, and they decided not to move forward. And 6 months later, that house is back on the market, the same house, and they're asking 330 for it.
Oh wow. So
Yeah,
kind of a missed opportunity, so to speak.
yeah.
So there's a couple of things I like to talk about at this, when I'm addressing this concern with clients. One is what I'm seeing with rents out there. I mean, we've got a client right now. It's a family of four living in a two-bedroom apartment. They're paying about 15.5 in rent.
Ouch.
Yeah, and that's pretty much.
Yeah.
But then, I mean, a family of four in a two-bedroom. So they inquired what would it be in our same complex to go to a three-bedroom, and they were told, in the 1700s. And so I know for them, they're going, well, wait, Marcia, what can I get a house for?
Yeah, yeah, rent at $1,700 a month. Wow, it's just crazy, isn't it? So not only are housing prices going up, but rent is also going up. So a good way to look at what your monthly payment would be is for every $1,000 that you spend in purchase price, it equates to about $6 to $7 in monthly payment. So if you were looking at a $300,000 purchase price for a house, then you would be about 18 about eight starting monthly payment about 1,800 a month to about 2,100 a month.
Okay, so we could fall in that range. So, and we know that there are houses in that 250 to 300 range. So you could get into a house for the same that we're seeing rents out there. Now, the nice thing about getting into a home is that payment really doesn't go up once we get in, right?
That's true. When you're dealing with a landlord, you've got landlords that decide to increase rent periodically and follow the trend. So whether you sign a 6 month lease or a 1 year lease, at the end of that lease, you always are at a point where you're ready to renegotiate what the rent would be. It doesn't stay the same. And then to me, even more important than that is that every penny that you pay in rent, you're paying your landlord's equity. So you're helping your landlord to be able to build equity for themselves and put that money in their own pocket. Where when you own your own home, you get to be able to build equity for you and put that money in your pocket. So just like that scenario we talked about where they were looking at a purchase price of 280 and now they're asking 330 for that house. All of that equity that they would have gained over that 6 months time goes for them to their benefit rather than to a landlord.
So they could have been a year in and had a really nice down payment on the second house they decide to buy, if they even decided to do that. You know, they might have just been there and been happy and know that they had 50 grand in equity. That's sleep good at night money, right?
Yeah, it would definitely help me sleep a little bit better at night, that's for sure.
I want to talk about a little bit about where interest rates are, because I feel like we've been spoiled a little bit over the last few years. I mean, we saw rates in the 3s, now we 4s and 5s. And it's funny to me sometimes, I actually just, with one of our clients, had this conversation. She's like, well, interest rates, I'm in the 5s and that makes me feel really bad. And I said, well, call your mom and dad and ask them what their interest rate was when they bought their first home. And I know, do you know one of your parents what their interest rates were?
I'm pretty sure it was in the double digits. I'm pretty sure it was about 12%. So
my mom jokes, and she always tells me they bought their first home on a credit card, basically, with how high the interest rate was.
Yeah.
So historically, for us to complain between 3 and 4 and 5, we're a little spoiled, if we're honest with ourselves. And is the general feeling that in the next 10 years, do we believe interest rates will be higher than they are today?
They very well could be.
They very well could be.
And I would say that they would have a higher probability of being a little bit higher than where they are today. What people may not understand with interest rates is that interest rates follow the market, and they're directly tied to the economy. And when the economy is performing really well, when your mom and dad bought their house on a credit card interest rate, right? Yeah. The economy was probably pretty strong. People felt secure in their job stability. People were getting salary increases. They were receiving bonuses, and their future looked bright. They weren't worried about where they were going to find their next paycheck. And so paying that higher interest rate to them to get into a home wasn't as critical because they were secure in the economy and where they stood. That's something that's really important to look at. So when interest rates go up, it's generally an indicator that the economy is performing better as well.
Okay. Well, we'll all hope for continued growth and positive things in the economy. And my only point when people ask me that, an average person moves, what is it now, every 7, 8 years?
Yeah, about every 5 to 7 years.
5 to 7 years. So, if you got in today, or if you made the leap in today, my guess would be that in 5 to 7 years, you're probably going to be pretty happy with where that interest rate is at, and probably pretty happy where you bought the home price at.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with you, because as you've built equity, having the lowest interest rate on your loan becomes important when you're going to stay in that loan for the life of the loan for that 30-year period. And so most people will either sell or refinance every 5 to 7 years, then in that 5 to 7 year time period, a lot of times recouping the cost is very, very minimal.
Awesome.